we forget about these things all the freaking time. All of you is welcome. Like, it's your light, it's your mission, it's your feelings. And truthfully, the more okay you are with them, the more everything around you benefits and has a net positive, even if we, quote, can't control it. The relationships, the business, the results. I want you on your best day. I want you on your worst day. I want you on your middle day. And I'm going to love you the same no matter what, because you are God's child and you deserve that grace.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into this episode, I want to share something special with you. After organizing to scale so many businesses, the thing that I get asked about the most is, how can I scale with all of these tabs open in my brain? And so I created a free training on exactly how I organize to scale businesses in 90-day sprints. If you would like to get access, you can go to stacygray.com/scale. That's Stacy with an I, Gray with an A.com/scale. Welcome back to another episode of The Rooted Founder. This one is going to be different. This is going to be about maybe two soulful people having a conversation about healing as high achievers. We've both experienced a lot of success from an eyes open perspective. He is the mastermind behind the customer journey that has scaled Vital Proteins and several other brands that we all know to make our hair look beautiful. But he is so much more than customer journeys. He's so much more than followers and funnels and all the things that we've done. So we're just going to unmask and have the conversation about our journeys and healing and all the plot twists along the way. And we hope that you see yourself in the journey as you have sought to scale your businesses, organize your businesses, and maybe even woken up in your dream life and it doesn't feel how you thought it would. This is for you. So George, I'm so excited you're here.
I'm honored. I'm with my sister. And yeah, like we were joking, we could have hit record for the first hour, but that was you and I taking each other to church. So just so everybody knows, we've already been podcasting off recording for an hour.
Yes. How do we even want to start this?
I don't know. It's your drive, my friend.
Let's talk about George before you had your eyes opened and your heart softened.
I'm actually really glad that you said that, because when you were talking about the accolades, I wanted to like make a note about it too. So it's kind of perfect. And I'm just, because I just feel full of the Holy Spirit and driven by God right now, I'm just going to rip the mask off and say, I've achieved on paper everything that I'd convinced myself would actually make me feel valuable and alive. And all it left me feeling was empty, isolated, and with nothing but pain in my life. And it's been a long journey of a lot of lessons learned. And I've fallen into the trap of idolizing all of the wrong things. Money was a big one, even safety and security, relationships, reputation. And I joke with people when they have me on a podcast, because they'll either make up a bio or they'll read my bio. And now I love when they read it. I'm like, yeah, but that's not who I am. Nor am I even really proud of those things. They're just byproducts. And most of them were byproducts of hiding from something. And so, for the paper people, I was a 22-week New York Times bestseller. I had a #1 app in the world. I've scaled and helped scale with incredible teams, multiple companies to $1 billion, multiple 9, 8 figures. I had my own business with 1 million followers that I deleted. I had 5 million people a month on my website. I've taught myself everything. I've done some of the craziest things. And truthfully, all of them were out of avoidance of being in a relationship with myself. And even after learning some of those lessons and making it all and losing it all, and then building what I thought was this community of people or this inner circle of friends, to realize that I didn't see the world the same and I was dying on the inside. I still didn't learn my lessons. And it was constantly getting wrapped up and roped up in the system of everybody else's thoughts or everybody else's identities. And I was the first one who was willing to sacrifice my own to be accepted. And I can go all the way back to 2010 when I started as an entrepreneur, to where like, I don't want to sell an ebook. I did it anyways. Or affiliate things, just they feel icky to me, and I did it anyways, chasing all the wrong things and all the wrong metrics. And I wish I could say that the journey to opening my eyes was instant. But what it really, really looked like was facing what you spoke about, which is, oh, they threw me a book party to celebrate my book being a New York Times bestseller, and I walked out of it and had an anger outburst because I was only number 4 and it wasn't good enough. To building up the next project and then spending time with God and realizing the entire thing was out of alignment. So I gave the company away as a Christmas present, and I was 3 weeks away from bankruptcy with a pregnant ex-wife. To not having a backup plan and living in tears and multiple emotional games and never addressing my relationship with myself, to then going down the new age route and thinking that the more plant medicine I did and the more tools that I found and the more things I knew, the happier I would be, except they all just distracted me from how unhappy I was, to then basically getting to the point, and I'm so grateful to God for this, that he basically said, okay, well, these are all the things that you idolize. They're all gone. And there's nowhere left to hide. There's no assets left. There's no backup money. There's no backup plan. And now it's just me and you. And even that journey is, I've learned to not judge myself. My faith journey has been my whole life in the making. But there were 3 years of probably the hardest years of my life leading up to last year, where I was still fighting it and still trying to control and just toe tapping in of like, oh, I'll do it that, but my way, or I'll come here and that way. And it still continued to cost me until I really, really got quiet enough for the first time to hear God's whispers. But in those whispers, for the first time, I accepted the love of Jesus in my heart. And that's when my life really started to change. That's when my heart really, really started to get happy. And since that moment, I've watched God do surgery on my garden, like surgical precision. And he's like, oh, you didn't see these weeds? They're removed. Oh, you didn't know that you could sprout this flower? Well, now you know. Go water it and tend to it. And I say that because even as somebody who coaches this, and we talk about this, and I talk about this on my podcast all the time, is that most of the things that I was pouring my energy into were distracting me from the things that I claimed I wanted in the first place, which was time or freedom or relationships. And I had them at my disposal, but I refused to engage with them because I was distracted by all the wrong things. And I'm proud of every single business accomplishment. And just so everybody knows, I even used to be the guy that told everybody how many companies I owned. I owned 13 companies. Well, some of those companies canceled my equity agreement and scaled to hundreds of millions, and I didn't get paid. Other ones never paid my invoices. Other ones went under. And I realized that in idolizing all of these things, I basically allowed my entire foundation to get eroded away because it was built on everything outside of myself instead of me. And that's what got me to today.
And hearing you share all of that and being like the former George you, would you even believe you would be the current George you?
No. I can think about that viscerally right now. Like there was a clip that came up on my Instagram from 2.5 years ago. And this clip happened to be one of our most viral clips. And in like a 70-second clip, I probably dropped an F-bomb 27 times. And that's how I communicate. I was like, I'm a Marine. Like, it's okay. Swearing isn't here, and boom, boom, boom. And now I look back with nothing but empathy and gratitude. But I'm a drastically different man. And I mean, if you were to ask me, and God, I'm sorry. I used to be the guy that fought against God. I fought against religion. But I find this very, very interesting is that, you know, for some of you who may know me, Stacy knows, but I spent 13 years of my life in the Marine Corps on active duty and multiple combat deployments. And I had numerous traumatic events happen in my childhood. And I was praying about this the other day, actually. I haven't talked about this anywhere. And I was thinking back to those moments, and I could remember them viscerally. And as somebody who didn't believe the last place that I had was when things got to where my life is about to end. The only thing my body would do would scream out is, God help me. It was like naturally, innately built in to my unconscious and my soul. And yet, even in those moments where like I was told I'd never walk again and I was going to lose both my legs, or I wouldn't have brain function because of the traumatic brain injuries, or however I survived that childhood, every single time I came out the other side and I still have full function of my legs. And by the way, some of the best calves you'll ever see. I own that all day.
You don't skip leg day.
I don't skip leg day. And still wouldn't give glory, still wouldn't give gratitude, because every part of me wanted to try to control and have an answer. And so it's even hard for me to understand. And I don't think I ever will. I don't think I ever will. How I am who I am now with the life that I have. Like even you as a friend, like we have a deeply connected friendship, but like I love you with all of my heart, and you represent so much of my past that I couldn't have had a relationship with because of my own wounds and my own trauma. And I'm blessed at like such a deep level. And I pray a lot about forgiveness for denial. And he just reminds me ever so gently, just like a father would, I've never judged you. I've never been mad at you. Just let me hug you. And I feel like that's my mission every day now, is to get my dad to hug me, you know, because my earthly one isn't here anymore and the father's there forever. But it's also scary. It's also scary because there's that part of us as high achievers, the part that you and I both share in common, where I'm like, but yeah, if I do this, I can create this. If I do this, I can make this. I can do this for everybody else. And it's navigating that dance harmoniously of like truly operating and living in alignment and in obedience and in integrity, while also not being attached to the highs or the lows, and being willing to change course and being willing to answer the phone, right? We joke about this all the time, but I'm like, the only mistakes I made in my life is God called and I didn't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And then he sends a voicemail, and then he gives me a flat tire, and then he makes my phone alarm go off, and then he sends me a heavy weather alert, and then I still don't listen, and then he sends a hurricane, and he's like, you listening? I'm like, oh, I'm finally listening. And it's been this beautiful, beautiful journey, but I could never imagine. I couldn't imagine the relationship I have with my son, the relationship I have with my ex, the relationship I have with my partner, the friendships that I have were something that I thought people wrote about in movies and fairy tales. I thought, like, there's no way that relationship exists. Like me, the kid that was sexually abused and physically abused and mentally abused and bullied his whole life, and spent 13 years in the most disconnected organization in the world, and was celebrated for having no feelings and being able to kill, and death and destruction and all of these things. I was like, I remember there was a therapist that fired me because I told them I was dead on the inside and I was incapable of feeling. And I was like, numb is the rest of my life. And on the way out the door, she looked me dead in the eyes and she's like, I just want you to know numb is a feeling. And it started this like onward spiral. But yeah, that's how I see it. So no, I don't think it would ever be possible.
So to frame this for people who are like builders, we're builders, right? And something I like to say is God is the visionary, I'm the integrator. And I think we share that in common. And I think the ceiling that I have seen builders hit, that you've hit, that I've hit, that everyone's hit, it's wrapped in this not enoughness.
Yeah.
And we are up when our revenue's up, we're down when our revenue's down, we're up when our team's happy, we're down when our team's not happy, we're up when our clients are happy, when they're criticizing, we feel inadequate. And we get ourselves on this hamster wheel. And even if you get out of the quote unquote rat race, you're still on this emotional hamster wheel. I call it business codependency.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone can relate to this, because even if you didn't build a business, you've experienced codependency. If you have built a business, you've also experienced codependency. And I think in the business arena, it gets labeled as narcissism. In the dinner table arena, it gets labeled as people pleasing. But it's really different sides of the same coin, and it comes down to not enoughness, which is this codependency is the root of it. My mom has a poem that she had when she was little, and it's literally the need to be needed. And I think that's the ceiling we hit, is like, who am I without my business? Who am I without my revenue? Who am I without my meditation and my plant medicine and my crystals and my sage and my, who am I without all of these things? And when I've had this experience now twice in my life where everything was stripped and I got to sit with God. And I consider it a massive gift of grace.
Yeah.
It was not something I really engineered. When you get to the end of yourself, grace shows up. The journey of accepting it, though, how was that for you?
I live in that every day. I'd like to say, like, I have it all figured out, but that's a trap. I'm never going to have it figured out, right? Like, one of my favorite verses is like, pick up your cross and follow me every day. But the way that I look at that cross is the stories I tell myself, the identities that I get wrapped up into. And I look at faith and my relationship with God like a garden. And just because I weeded yesterday and I watered today doesn't mean the garden's going to grow tomorrow. And the high achiever in me looks at myself and says, earn your faith tomorrow. And it's not, oh, did I read my Bible? Did I hit a certain amount of time? Did I watch X amount of scriptures? It's, did I have a relationship with Jesus today? And how did I do? And the beautiful thing that you mentioned is grace. I say to people that the devil yells and God whispers. And the devil's first tool is deception, which then leads to distraction, which then leads to condemnation. And if the thoughts are ever, I failed, I did bad, I did wrong, you're not talking to God. And so it feels like sacred soulful surgery every single day of having the highs of this conversation and knowing that my human experience in flesh, when this incredible podcast is done, is going to have a text or a conversation or something on the plan that didn't go to plan today, where the default part of my brain is going to go to, like, look, you didn't get it all done. Look, you didn't do X, you didn't do Y. And all those moments do is rob me from the present. And in that present is where God lives and grace lives, and also the acceptance to be able to operate in this. And it's a muscle. Like, it's a very, very big muscle to where I have sprints. Like, I'm in the middle of another fast right now.
I love that you're fasting, and I am inspired to fast because of you.
And I did my first ever one like a month ago, and it was not something I planned. And you want to talk about breaking the high achiever, right? This was not something I planned. I was like, okay, I woke up and my Sunday mornings are all the same. I wake up, I watch a sermon from my favorite pastor with my son, and then he plays, and then I go to my actual church. I watched his sermon, and it was about, and we fasted, and he called the whole church to a 7-day dry fast. Then I go to my church, and they're talking about fasting. And then I had 2 conversations in person that I didn't bring up about fasting. I was like, all right, God. And every part of me, I can't do this. I've only ever done 2 days. I don't want to give these things up. And I didn't go easy. I went kind of hard in the paint. I was like, water only, no food, no caffeine, no social media, and no consumption unless it's godly. Music, YouTube, Bible. And it changed my life. It changed my life because I realized that even in that, the elimination of food, I didn't realize the amount of hours every day I spent distracted. I didn't realize until I removed it when I'd sit on the couch where I'd start to fantasize and idolize food. And then the hunger would come and my physical body would hurt. But then the moment I would pray through it and be present, the hunger went away and I felt alive and present. And as somebody who's like a breathwork teacher and has done more plant medicine than I would like to admit and never will again, presence is something I've taught people. And I'm like, this is how you get there. This is how you get there. And I don't think I'd ever fully experienced it in my life. to the point where it happened again, where I'm in day 3.5 of a fast that I wasn't planning on. And my physical body doesn't have much left. I'm pretty lean, but yet God's like, nope, it was 3 people in a day. I'm fasting, I'm fasting, I'm fasting. And I've been like tilting with it and dancing with it. And it feels like I'm back in relationship at the deepest level of, sacrificing the flesh to get my food and my wisdom and my energy and my light from God, like the word of God, scripture, conversations like this that fill my soul. And I just realized how much I disrespected time and how much I disrespected food and how many of those things I took for granted, just like in business. How I take for granted our team members, how I've taken for granted our customers, how I've taken for granted the knowledge that I've been gifted to learn, how I've taken for granted every area of business instead of realizing that businesses are like a garden or maybe a baby for you, to where their only success really comes down to how you nurture them and pour into them. But, I think about children all the time because my son's 8. I don't parent him the same as I did when he was 6 or 4 or 2. And he eats different, and every day it's different. Who knows what's going to come up? And it requires a different version of me every single day. But there's deep humility in that as well. And that's where I was really forced to face myself, and still to this day wrestle. And I'll own this. I get jealous. I get jealous of some of my friends that feel like they're just a disciple of Jesus, or like have been pastors their whole life. And I'm like, I want to be there. Like, I want to see it the way that you see it and operate like you do. And it's also just teaching me to fall in line and love my own journey, and to just continue to walk it and know that there's no finish line in any of it. And it's this like active pursuit over and over and over again. And so it keeps me humble. It keeps me processing a lot of tears every day, and most of them are gratitude, and sometimes they're just releasing and then they turn into gratitude. And it's beautiful. And even in business, like even for me, and I'll own this publicly, like I have a podcast that's been out for years. There's 600 episodes, and the first 400 of them were swears and cuss words and denying God's existence, and I'm not taking any of them down. I'm still proud of the man that I was. And then now I'm like unapologetic about it. And I've been attacked. I've been judged. I've been, smeared. And I'm like, I love you. Like, I love you. Like, the thing that's underneath all of this for me is love. It's just curiosity and connection and love. And I think what I've been learning is how to apply that same curiosity, connection, and love to myself every single day.
It reminds me of the scripture, to love your neighbor as yourself, and how much that presupposes we know how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
This is something that I value so much about our relationship. And I first met you when I came to your retreat in Montana. And I was looking for new community, faith-based community. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I had not really been in any business communities that were faith-based. And what you provided in that environment was, I felt seen. And I know I've shared this with you personally, but someone can only see you to the extent that they've seen themselves. And because you've gone into your heart, you have alchemized, you have cleared the cobwebs, you have faced all of those demons and continue to face the demons. I think this has allowed our friendship to grow to the depth that it has, because I'm continually looking for, where can I connect? Where can I plug in with people that can hold all of me? My biggest fear has always been being all of myself and fully rejected. And your logo is a lighthouse. And it took me a while for it to click and me to go, oh my gosh, I understand your logo now. I didn't understand it before, but I get it now. And not that I logically got it, but I viscerally understand what it means. And you create this space and grace, which is one of my soul's work too, is to create space and grace where other people can be their authentic selves. They can unmask and stop holding up this facade or this container or this achievement, performance perfection trap.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't be perfect and we can't be performing. Otherwise, it's draining. And I think that I've experienced that, you've experienced that. And now we're building differently. We're building in alignment. We're building because we are connected to God and His will is flowing through us, which I would have never believed in a million years I'd be saying this on a podcast. I didn't even name my podcast. My sister named my podcast because I had gone through a deep, dark night of the soul. And she was like, this is who you are. And I think your ability to see people is because you see yourself. And that's a reflection of loving yourself also, which takes so much grace and a lot of unlearning.
Yeah. It's the unlearning part. Because here's the craziest part about it. And I think I'll just acknowledge what people are probably thinking. This term love yourself gets thrown around so frequently. Like it's like, oh, the new popular thing to say, like alignment and authenticity and boom, boom, boom. That there's even a finish line to it.
Hmm.
Like I've been through 12-step programs. I was an addict, opiate addict, codependency. I've been through CODA. I've been through all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite movie references that you'll get and I get is What About Bob? And it's baby steps. And this loving yourself concept, it was almost something I was trying to do. I was like, well, give me a framework, right? Like, tell me how I do it. What boxes do I check?
What's the checklist?
What's the checklist, right? Or like, for the men in the relationship or the men that are listening to this that are in relationships and you're like, your partner gets mad at you and you're like, well, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do to fix it. I'll do anything to fix it, right? And it's never a state of doing. It's always a state of being. And for me, what it really boils down to now after, exploring this for 20 years is it's not because I'm happy or I'm sad or that I'm having good thoughts or bad thoughts. Self-love at the deepest level is radical acceptance in the present moment. And the moment you let it go, you're no longer in it. And it is a moment to moment. Like I have a big mouth. I know I have a big mouth. I don't have a filter, right? And if God puts something on my heart or in my head, it comes out. Sometimes it comes out and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I love you. And other times it comes out and a year later I hear about it, or 3 years later, or sometimes it comes out and it lands. But it's this radical self-acceptance to allow all of us to be welcome. And for me, it was learning how to surrender to the moment and also be comfortable being in my own skin, regardless of what everybody else thought. And I remember the event. I remember so much of the event that you were at. I remember you. I remember when we talked in the kitchen. We were in tears in like a matter of 30 seconds. And if I remember correctly, I basically was like, here's all my shadows that I'm currently facing. And it also feels like freedom. And it's so crazy to me that we've been conditioned and trained over and over and over again that the only place we can be ourselves, and I'll just call everybody out, especially the women, is when we're in the shower alone, hunched up in tears on the bottom of the floor, or in that bathtub alone, men too. But then the moment we walk out, we have to become this performative version of ourselves. And it's this gilded cage that we create, and we forget that we own the key. And what it took me years to recognize is that I was becoming this version of myself for everybody else. But nobody ever really had a relationship with me because it wasn't founded on solid ground. And so the thing that I feared, I was creating by not being myself. And so it became this self-fulfilling prophecy to where now, on an average day today, I've prayed like 20 times today. I've probably cried 6. I've processed things out. I'm like, oh, look at that thought. Oh, better thought. Oh, pray through this one. Oh, should I say that? Oh, I'll just say it. Right. And then apologize for saying it, or say, hey, I'm sorry. I wanted to say something earlier and I forgot to. Right. And it's this constant practice and muscle of, really, to throw out another term, claiming your power, like your identity. I think I posted this, the only real security you have is your identity.
Yes.
That's the only real security you have in life. It's the only thing that can never be taken away from you. And I've watched hundreds of videos of people at the end of their life. And I always love, because I have friends that are old. We're not old. We're young, right? We're going backwards here. I believe that. But I always love that when you see like the 70-year-old woman pushing the grocery cart, like ripping a chain of cigarettes, she just doesn't care. She just tells you how she feels, right? Or you get these conversations where it's like a World War II veteran, old grandpa, and you're like, you're going to get canceled. And he's just sharing his opinion. And it's this thing that we get locked up in this trap, in this cage. And the thing that I want to say is that I've also had to learn over the years that self-love is not positioned authenticity that causes pain to other people.
Break that down. Break that.
Yeah. So self-love is a place of knowing yourself and owning yourself, but it's I statements, not you statements. And I fell into this trap for years of being authentic and being like, yeah, but you should, and you shouldn't. And this is the only way to see it, which was just me screaming, I really don't know who I am. And now what I've truly, truly learned is like, I can express myself because it's actually founded in what I believe and aligned at the core, but it never causes collateral damage on the other side. Because love and damage do not exist at the same time. The damage comes when the quote unquote love that we're sharing is agendized out of either insecurity or out of hiding. And so just like you and I can have disagreements in politics, we can have disagreements in life issues, we can have disagreements everywhere. But now I know when I share my opinion, it's from a place of grace and full identity, not from a place of judgment or projection that causes the other person to have harm. And that's a lesson I've had to learn painfully. And feedback is the greatest friend in the world and the hardest relationship that I've ever faced. But truthfully, I treat feedback like it's God's my triage nurse. And if he puts it on my heart, I show him the symptoms and he says, hey, these are how the symptoms are presenting themselves. There's a place to make an adjustment. And so that's kind of how I see self-love.
I love that, because what that actually really creates is safety. It's internal safety. I am okay with my own emotions and I am okay with my own thoughts because I'm rooted in clear identity and it's not a threat. I'm not threatened by what you say or what you do or our even misalignment. Maybe it's not seeing the world the same way. I'm still rooted in my clear identity. I had a process that I had created maybe 10, 12 years ago, and I've been using it for the last 10, 12 years. And you'll want to change one of the words, but I'm still going to use it. It's called truth in the trigger.
Oh, yeah.
You're changing trigger to tickle. I know.
Yeah, you know this about me already, but I'll take the trigger. I love it. Truth in the trigger. Truth
in the trigger. So somebody could say something like, you use too many cuss words, or your faith journey isn't authentic, or you didn't really scale the businesses, or you were a bad coach, or they could say all these things about you. And those are you statements, not I statements. And then my job to take radical acceptance is to find my truth in that trigger. When that makes my chest get, or take my breath away, or makes my mind race, I'm responsible for getting to the root and then getting truth from it. I feel attacked. Why do I feel attacked? What am I making it mean? What story am I giving it? How am I making it my identity versus separate from me? And how can I alchemize this all the way down to a place of love so I can see that other person who said, you're not good at doing this, or you're not valid for X, Y, and Z. And I can see it with grace and love and respond with, I'm so sorry that we are in this dialogue. Not even I'm sorry. I am honored that you feel that I am a safe space to express that. And I can see you in that pain, and it's less of a reflection about me, and I'm going to see you through it. And I've been in that narrative before.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a healing conversation on both sides versus adversarial.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the way that was taught to me, where the tickle test came from, it wasn't ever called the tickle test. It was called the purple dinosaur test. And it was
That's up your alley too.
Yeah, I know. And I just like tickle better. But here's what happened, because I only learned this lesson because I was the example in front of a room full of 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at a personal development conference before I became a personal development trainer. And it was an experientially based conference. And I was living out of alignment, like full out of integrity. This might shock you. I was in a 3-piece suit every day in this conference, like dressed to the nines.
Y'all, when he was in Montana, he was in a pink onesie.
Yeah, pink onesie.
Mohawk.
Pink mohawk, pink onesie. I live in Montana. I have pink boots that are bigger than anything you've ever seen before. I wear shorts in the winter, and basically my business casual is a black hoodie, black shorts, and my casual is just a t-shirt, right? So like I was business suits, car, status. I was like, oh, I have money, right? Like I can pay for a solution. Like people couldn't do the trainings. Like I'll pay for your trainings, right? Like I was just a living lie. And this is like early on in this like 4-week course. Like this is the first one. And they're teaching this concept of like victim responsible kind of thing. And then we get into this point, and they didn't tell us what they were going to teach us. So they start asking us questions. They're like, why are you here? And I'm like, well, I'm here because they did this and they did this and they did this. And I'm here because I have to fix myself. And they did this and they did this. And she's like, stand up, Lisa Kelman, I love you. And she just kind of starts like ripping into me, like intervention coaching, right? And it's really, really gentle in the beginning. And then she starts to say something, and she's like, well, yeah, but you lie. And I'm like, no, I don't. Right. And I like have this heightened emotional response. And then she like says something, and she's like picking at scabs that she could see from the outside. Gets me to the point where I'm like yelling back, and I'm like, stop. Like, I don't do any of those things. And then she's like, okay, you're a purple dinosaur. And immediately my whole body surrendered. I'm like, no, I'm not. And the whole room like gasped, because they could see it. I couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's stupid. I'm not a purple dinosaur. And then she like dug again and dug again. Mm. And at this point, I'm in tears, and I'm like breaking at the surface. And then she whipped it out again, and she's like, you're a yellow frog. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then I got it, like viscerally in my body. And it broke me. Like it broke me. But to your point, and the level of depth and power in what you shared, is that our bodies only react to what we know to be true for us. And the reason I reframed it to tickle, because Stacy's joking, because I call it the tickle test now, is because it's probably been the most powerful barometer in my life, where we'll read books like Extreme Ownership or 100% Responsible, or you go down any avenue of success psychology and like true happiness and stoicism and Vedanta and all these other things. It's really understanding that like we're in the driver's seat, but it requires that we can look at the road that we've driven and see the potholes that are there. And triggered always like kind of made me angry. So I was like, tickled, because I don't like being tickled, but being tickled doesn't hurt. It's more so like, please stop this. Yeah. Please stop this. And it's been the most profound experience and shift in my life of a reframe of like taking what you just shared, and even in conversations that we have personally, where it's like, oh, I'll just be like, that tickled. Like, oh, and I'm like, oh, or I'm sorry I said that, or there's a way to do this. But I think it speaks to this thing that I think what we all crave is this level of connection. But we live in a world that even when you and I started as entrepreneurs, like we weren't competing against Instagram. We weren't competing against TikTok. We didn't have this place to go hide or get distracted or to numb. Like if we saw each other, we'd see each other at a conference, or we'd pick up the phone and have a conversation. And there's places that you can't hide. And now there's all this hiding places, but yet everybody listening to this can think about like that last dinner that you had with your friend where you lost track of time, your phones weren't out, it was belly laughs galore. And then you're like, when do I want this again? And that true connection comes on the other side of radical responsibility and radical honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the most beautiful, beautiful gift in the world, but we have to be willing to do it. And I love that also God built in mechanisms of us that we all know. We all know when we've recorded that video and our heart's like, oh, don't post it. Or we send that email, or we get off a client call. But then we're always like, oh, just stuff it down. I'll just wait to the next one and pretend it never happened. Or you can clean it up and you can lean into it.
Yeah.
Because the fear that you have in facing it is going to come to reality anyways. It's just going to hurt a whole lot worse.
Mm.
And it took me years of practicing this to realize that even when I have some of those conversations, like ending business partnerships, or like, hey, we can't do this anymore, or like that thing you said, like, I'm not aligned with it. I faced every fear in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And now the only thing that's happened is it's deepened all of our relationships, or the exact opposite thing came true. And I'll even share this personally. Stacy knows this, but when I was a New York Times bestselling author, I wrote a paleo cookbook. And the reason I was a paleo food blogger is because I was bulimic for 15 years. I didn't want anybody to know. And I had this theory in my life that if I hid in plain sight, nobody would ever know. So I had a 6-pack and big muscles, and I'm this paleo chef guy, and yet I'm purging before and after live streams. And now I'm on book tour. And I'm about to give a keynote. And I was giving a talk, and I'll never forget this. 3 ways to use food to create breakthrough results in your life. And my ex-wife was there with me, and we were already at the end. And she looked at me dead in the eye, and she said, are you really going to go up there and lie to them again? And that's all I needed to hear. And I faced every fear. My publisher was in the audience, my co-author, like 500 of my peers. And I literally, God took the words out of my mouth. I could not speak. I could not give this talk. And I walked up on that stage, and I stood there. And by the way, I had this pinstripe white and blue shirt on, and it was purple because I was drenched in sweat. And it felt like I faced every single fear in the world, and I couldn't speak. They introduced me, and I stood there, and I just froze.
Mm.
And the only thing that came out of my mouth was, I've been lying to everybody. And there was this like 1,000-pound gorilla released in this feeling of like an exorcism. And then I don't remember any of it, but I just diarrheaed of the mouth. It was like I was in a Catholic confessional with 1,000 people in the audience. And this went on for like 3 to 4 minutes. And I was completely blacked out. And it was the first time in my whole life that I'd ever been honest, authentic, and all of it. And I had convinced myself before, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to go out of business. Everything's boom, boom, boom. I get done. And I was just like empty. Like there was nothing left. And I noticed though, that people that were standing up sat down, and people that weren't paying attention were looking. And I was like, I'm about to be like scarlet lettered, destroyed. And I finished, and I just stood there. I'm on this stage. I felt naked. I was drenched in sweat. I was out of breath. And I stood there, and I just looked at everybody. And I was just like, and then someone's like, are you going to give your talk now? And I was like, yeah. And I hit the first slide, and I just gave this talk. And it was like nothing happened, but everything happened at the same time. And then after that talk is when my life really changed, because the amount of people that came up to me and they're like, I've been struggling with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been struggling with X. I've never told anybody I have an eating disorder. There's so many things I don't share in my life. And it was like, oh, this makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. But now it's the most powerful thing I use every day.
I feel like you standing naked in front of that crowd, not literally, but feeling like it. I feel like the journey of unmasking feels like literally you're crawling through glass naked on a front of Times Square billboard, and everybody is watching you.
Yep.
and you are like, oh my gosh, this is excruciating.
Yeah.
And everyone then goes, me too.
Me too.
Me too. And not the Me Too movement, but literally the I am the same way. All of the things that we judge, all the things that we complain about is just literally a walking confessional, because we are saying, this thing, eating disorder, finances, relationship, sex, party, all these things are all of the ways that I am hiding from myself. I'm hiding from being my brightest and best self. Coming full circle back to your logo of the lighthouse, like when I was in one of the coaching groups, coaching calls in your mastermind, I was talking about how one of my things that I've had to learn and unlearn and reprogram is that if I am my brightest and best self, I'll lose love. I had somehow anchored that into my brain that when I am my brightest and best self, I will lose love. And because of that, I would keep myself small. And because I was keeping myself small, I was fragmenting my soul. And because I was fragmenting my soul and I felt inauthentic, I coped. And so our eating disorder, our drug abuse, our alcohol abuse, our partying, our workaholism, are all of these things that we do as human beings are just really waving the white flag, like, help, help, I'm coping because I'm fragmenting my soul, because I think if I am my brightest and best self, I will lose love. And the reality is, and you and TJ helped me get here, is my purpose in life is to be my brightest and best self. And if I'm ever in a container or an environment where my brightest and best self is threatening to someone else, I'm in the wrong room. And I need to go find a different room to be in. And where I have full permission to unmask, I have full permission to be my authentic self. And it can be messy. It can be imperfect. It could be tickling.
Yeah.
It could be a purple dinosaur. It could be all of those things, and it being held in grace, because truth only exists when there is grace. You cannot have truth unless there's grace. This is why grace comes first. And we live in a world where it's just hard truth, shame, calling people out, and nobody's going to respond to that. We've been beating that drum, and I can't respond to it. You can't respond to it, because the only thing that's going to let us put our guard down is someone to show up in a pink onesie and a pink mohawk and be like, you can be your fullest expression and still make a lot of money and still do a lot of things, and it's all okay.
All of it. And I, like, this, I primarily end up mentoring or coaching women, and like 95% of my client roster is women. And I love the men that I have. And I actually have more of them showing up, really healthy masculine men, which I love. And I'm like, yeah, I've been praying for these. But I've probably navigated this same conversation with 100 clients, and I will never understand what it's like to be a woman. I can't. I can just empathize the best that I can, and I have a lot of experience. But the labels and the pressure and these identities and looking and feeling a certain way, and even when I have women who have all female teams, they feel like they have to hide in their own business. They have to hide from their team members. They have to hide from their clients. And one in particular went through a pretty life-altering movement and decision in their life, and she couldn't function. And I was like, I know. And we need to speak your truth. And like, we faced every single feel you can imagine. Like, every client's going to fire me. My team is going to like literally think I'm failing. They're going to quit the business. Like, we have this multi-7-figure business. And I was like, okay. Or, and we had this conversation, and she took the cue and basically sent a Slack message to all the team and all the clients, said, hey, I just experienced this really big. Here's what I'm feeling. Here's what I'm going through. I just need a couple of days of grace. And magically, like, fireworks of everything went off. Clients are like, I've navigated that. I'm going through that right now. Team members are like, I wish I knew I would have supported you more. I wish I would have done blank. I wish I would have done blank. I'm here now. And, you know, when you were talking about earlier of like, we want love, when we're not ourselves, we're not getting love. We're getting false love. And real love is messy. I love how messy our relationship is. We've probably cried together more than we've laughed together, which just leads to deeper laughs. And I always think about kids because my son's 8, so it's really easy to see. But like when he plays with his friends, they will go from best friends to mortal enemies in 2 minutes because somebody took a card or played with the Pokemon toy or grabbed my iPad. And then I watch my son do this, and he's like, they'll come back and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, but he'll say, you, or it made me feel this way. I felt this. And the other one's like, I'm so sorry. I felt this. And then they're like hugging and tackling each other. And like, that's the art of human. Like, that's the art of connection. It's not this, we're robots. Like, we have enough of that in the world. Like, we're not living in WALL-E. We don't want to be disconnected, being carried around in our chairs. Like, connection requires it. And even my son, I have to share this. I had a female entrepreneur out here when we were doing a private intensive, and she was talking about how she just wants the day to be predictable and just doesn't really want to feel. And my son was 6 at the time, and I never taught him this, Stacey. It blows my mind to this day. God is wonderful. And he comes over to her and he's like, can I draw something for you? And she's like, yeah. So he draws a straight line on a piece of paper. And he's like, I just have a question. And she's like, yeah. If this was your heartbeat, what would it mean? And she's like, well, it would mean I'm dead. He's like, okay. And then he draws an up and down heartbeat. And he's like, and if this was your heartbeat, what would it mean? And she's like, well, that I'm alive. And he's like, this is what your emotions are supposed to feel like every day, because that's what it means to be alive. He was 6. I cried about that for like 6 or 7 hours. But we try to hang on to one and avoid the other ones, which prevents the expansion of both. And I love that Carl Jung, as I studied psychology, says that the tips of your branches in heaven can only touch down to the depth of your roots in hell. And its capacity and its range. And our capacity to feel, to have those ugly cries. Like the amount of female clients, I'm like, all right, here's what you're going to do. They'll get really mad. Like really mad. I'm like, are you angry? They're like, yeah. I'm like, anger is a secondary emotion. Cool. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to write a letter right now to whatever you're angry at. Okay. And then I want you, when we're done, to go to your bedroom and make sure nobody's home, lock the door, prep everybody, maybe the neighbors. And I want you to put that letter on the pillow. And I want you to absolutely physically destroy that pillow. Like, I want you to, like J-Lo in one of her cheesy movies where she's fighting back against somebody. Like, I want you to like Mike Tyson that pillow and actually release it out. And that anger always comes with this release. And then there's tears. And then I'm like, and when you're done and the tears come, I want you to go set a bubble bath. I want you to sit in it. And I just want you to let it out. Let the water wash it all away. Just let it come out. Bubble bath, music, candles, whatever it is. Like, just honor yourself. And every single time, and I mean every single time, the next day is like the happiest, most freeing version. And we start to build our relationship with this. And it's like, I love the fact that I feel so deeply. Because if I can feel my sadness like I do when I see somebody hurt or I'm empathizing with somebody, it also means that I can celebrate their victory with them and feel it at like the highest level. And that's what it means to be alive. And I think it's a lost art. And it all comes down, like, do I love myself enough to be honest with myself, to allow my experience to come? And even people listening to this, like, it could be, and I hate to say this, but it was almost a strategy at one point, and not intentionally, but I was giving a keynote to 1,000 people, like 900 something people in Austin. And I was having a really bad day, like a really, really bad day. Like, things were not going well. And then in the middle of my talk, I'm talking about like my sexual abuse and my entrepreneurial journey, and it overwhelmed me. And so I couldn't speak. So the only thing I knew what to do was to just stand on stage and cry. And I just started bawling, and I didn't tell anybody anything. I just cried, and then I got it out, and I was like, cool. I like wiped my boogers on my sleeve. And then I like picked up at the point I was, and I'm like, and the second mistake you make in your customer journey is, And then I get down to that keynote and I had like 100 people come up to me and they're like, what was that? I'm like, what was what? And they're like, what happened? I'm like, oh, I had an emotion. I had to let it out. And it became like the reason people hired me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I just think about how we operate, and even like you and I talking about business and alignment and being our authentic selves, where we put these cages around ourselves. And then by default, those cages then get passed down to our team. But then we gaslight our team because they're not giving us their creative ideas, or they're not adding anything to the table. Or then we feel blocked and we're just checking boxes every day. And it's like, but where does the humanity live? Like, where is that creative process? Because for every entrepreneur listening to this, I can also remind you that the only reason you're at the level you're at is because in the beginning, your identity wasn't wrapped up into what worked. If you did 7 Instagram posts and it didn't work, you didn't beat yourself up. You felt through it and like, I'll try something different. If your offer didn't work, you're like, okay, amazing. I'm not a bad person. This just missed. Let me do it again. But then we get conditioned by our own habits and behaviors and lack of intentionality. And then we get into the business and we feel like we made this monster or machine that's almost running itself, and we're a victim in the passenger seat. But truthfully, it's because we're just not expressing ourselves. We're not allowing ourselves the humanity. For the women listening to this, we're not allowing ourselves grace. We don't give ourselves a break when our cycle comes. We don't step away and honor the feelings in our body. Our heart tells us no, and our head says do it anyways. And then we wonder why we get conditioned in it. And dudes are the same way. Dudes, I'm not allowed to feel. No, I just have to grind through it. And I'm like, or you should grace through it, because it's okay, because nobody performs at 100 every day. And I have a mentor that I love dearly, Jeff Spencer, who's responsible for like 90 gold medals at the Olympics. He was Tiger Woods' coach, Lance Armstrong's coach, mindset. And I'll never forget this. He said this to me early on in my career. And he's like, do you want to know why champions win? One word: temperance. No one wins at 100. You shoot for 70 every day as an average. You might have a 20 day, an 80 day, a 30 day. But if you just try to average 70, you're going to win. And we forget about these things all the freaking time. And all of you is welcome. Like, it's your light, it's your mission, it's your feelings. And truthfully, the more okay you are with them, the more everything around you benefits and has a net positive, even if we, quote, can't control it. The relationships, the business, the results. Like, I love that with my clients, the first 20 minutes of our calls are us crying together. And they're like, what's happening in your life? And I'm like, what's happening? I was like, oh, like, you want to get into strategy now? They're like, yeah. And then it works like a charm. Right? But it's real. And it's like, I want you on your best day. I want you on your worst day. I want you on your middle day. And I'm going to love you the same no matter what, because you are God's child and you deserve that grace.
I just want to play that back. We're building a calling. We're stepping into our calling. We're not building a cage.
Yes.
And we need community to do that.
1,000%. 1,000%. And that community has to be connected and real.
Yes.
Like, it does me no good when you and I catch up and I'm like, Stacey, I'm struggling with this. And you're like, oh yeah, keep driving your car into a wall, George. Like, no, like, you're like, hey honey, I love you. You want to look at it a little bit differently? And I'm like, thank you. But from a place of grace, right? Like, on the men's side, we say like iron sharpening iron, but also like, and this pisses me off. I think, or pretty much know, I have so many female clients because all of them came from a female coach who tore them down. Like, the amount of woman to woman desecration and degradation blows my mind. It's like Mean Girls out there. It's not like call a sister up, like give me some loving grace, like speak into me. It's like, you're bad. You're wrong. It's my way or the highway. How dare you? You questioned me. It's my way. I've done. And I'm like, what's happening? And it happens on the dude side as well. But it took me years to realize, like, community, whether male or female, is a space that you feel safe to exist in. And in that, you feel called to be greater and better. not degraded, not shamed, not guilted, not faulted, not blamed. Because like newsflash, none of us were born with this manual. We're all just figuring it out as we go. And I think that's the way that you learn, is you pass on lessons, and the people that you're in community with should be embodying and practicing, not perfecting, practicing. Because I promise you, I fall on my face more than anybody that I've ever coached in my life. The only difference is now I willingly run at the wall as fast as possible to find the weak spots. But even leadership for me, like when I was in the Marine Corps, I would say this all the time. Like they had this like, you lead from the front, you lead from the front. And I was like, no, you don't. No, you don't. I'm like, you lead from the middle. Because you can see the people ahead you, can turn around and grab a hand of the people behind you, because we only win if everybody gets home. And they would say things like, well, you're only as strong as your weakest Marine. I'm like, great, then why the heck am I leaving him back there? I'm not going to shame him into something that's going to work. It didn't work in the first way. Like, how do we empower him? How do I walk next to him? How do we step by step with that? And it can be confronting too. Because you and I have talked about this, and I say this often, like, it doesn't matter what level of entrepreneurship you're at. If you're a physical product, if you're service-based, if you're coaching, you're consulting, you serve to get served. That's the whole reason you exist. Like, we might be dishing out food, but we're a chef in the kitchen who gets feedback to then make our process better, to make our recipe better, to make our leadership better, to lead our teams better, to lead ourselves better. And it's a gift. But you got to be surrounded by people that love it and love you no matter how you perform in it. Because if you make me dinner and you promise me marry me chicken, and you put salt instead of something else, or cayenne instead of something else, I'm not going to take a bite of it and say, how dare you? You should never cook again. You're a horrible chef. I don't want to be your friend anymore. I'm be like, girl, can we check your ingredients and can we make it again? Right? And I think just having that levity when you bring it in, and like even reframing this, I reframe so many life challenges into food examples because it takes the charge away from them. Like, so what that you had a bad team meeting? Like, so what that you were accidentally short with a client? Like, so what that that thing didn't work? Like, so what that you missed the mark? Amazing. Love yourself in the process. Own it. But with them, not in isolation and self-suffrage. And then make a plan to improve it together. And that only comes in community. Sorry, that was like a TED Talk.
I mean, I feel like I went to church and I will go again. I love it. How?
Yeah, I'm not sorry.
No, don't be.
Yeah, no. I had to clean that
Everybody
up.
rewind this and listen to it again. I'm going to.
I had to clean that up for me.
I know. That's a good reminder for us all to be our fullest, brightest, and best selves unapologetically. You are a walking permission slip. That's what I love about you.
Yeah.
For people craving this type of community, now you and I were talking before we hit play, just about this desire to have this level of community where we can be building businesses, we can be working hard, we can be shooting for big visions, because God's the visionary, we're the integrators, and He wants a massive movement. And all building a company really is building a community. And all a church is a community anyways. So for all of the ones that are now returning to faith, finding faith, grace is showing up for them, and they're ready to co-create with the ultimate creator. We've been talking like, how do we create community for these people? How do we create it for us? Because it's what we want. We both know people who are going through transitions, and it takes leaving a friend group and then creating space for a new friend group to come in, and trusting that that's going to happen. You've gone through it, continue to go through it. I am going through it, continuing to go through it, significant, all the things. What wisdom, insight do you have, and or places people can land?
Yeah, I love this. I love that question. And I might even answer this a little differently than some expect. Finding a community starts by cultivating one with yourself.
Mm.
And one of the best questions to ask yourself is like, what do I bring to the table? And reflecting on how you would show up in one. And then once you're aware of that, you have to create the space for it by cutting out all the noise. And this is the part that gets people. Like, what music do you listen to? What podcasts are you listening to? What shows are you consuming? Who are you following on social media? Like, when you see somebody's piece of content, does it create shame and like, I have to prove this? Or does it make you feel called to be more of yourself? Because in order for something new to come in, you have to create space for it to exist. And I'm not saying this from words. I did this for 3 years. After I met God for the first time, he called me to stop consuming content. And it took 3 years for me to feel complete, to come back on the internet. It's why there was a gap with me online. It's why I deleted 1 million followers and I stopped listening to music and stopped reading books. And it also took 6 months of like me mourning and releasing. It felt like I was kicking. It was harder than an opiate addiction. Mm-hmm. But then I got to this place where when there was no noise.
Wait, I want to pause before you move on, because you literally just said not having screens was harder to kick than an opioid addiction.
100 times harder. 100 times harder.
I haven't had an opioid addiction, so I would not know. But literally, the whole world is on screens.
Yeah, I had a
dopamine addiction.
I had a monk on my podcast. He lived in a monastery, 7 years in silence, and he summarized this better than anyone I've ever met. And I'm just going to call everybody out right now. If you can't go pee or poop without your phone, you've never lived a day in your life. That's 7 years of silence in a monastery, but it's summarized up. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I had to face the fact that I had ingrained disconnection in my body to where like I didn't have social, I didn't have anything. I'd pick up my phone 200 times a day just to look at it. Like it was like, oh, I'm just having a sip. I'm just having a sip. And I wouldn't look at it, but my phone, the habits, the ingrained nature, like I couldn't sit still. I couldn't sit still for like more than 30 seconds.
And that's like counterfeit connection.
Counterfeit connection. It's not real.
It's not real.
It's manufactured. Right? Now, I'm not saying that everybody online is not authentic or you can't have it. Of course you can. I'm blessed that we have the internet. But we also have to remember it's a tool for us to use, not a tool that should use us. And if it's the default, if like the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is like, oh, check my phone, or like what happened or what's there, like, hello, like in any other bucket, if I replace that with alcohol, if I replace that with drugs, if I replace that with any other thing, you'd be pursuing a massive intervention because it has its grip on you. And when I went through this, it took about 6 months. And I mean, I was at the bottom of the barrel. I was suicidal. I was depressed. I was like literally at the height of it all. And it eventually shifted because there was one day where I'm like, well, if I can't consume, what's left to do? And I was like, oh, create. And that's when things changed. And I realized that my identity is also built in the expression of my creation in whatever medium I choose. I can sit on my couch all day and think I'm this or think I'm that, but truthfully, I'm whoever I choose to be today. And that's where it started, whether it was writing or reading or creating videos or podcasts or all of it, is like, we're the ones who cultivate our own community of evidence to know that we're being ourselves. And all too often, and I've said this to people, I tell people to stop listening to my podcast. I'm like, listen, if you're consuming my podcast, you're building my vision, not yours. But if you stop listening and you go put some bricks into place and come back and pick up another nugget and then pause and go build yours, well, then you're going to have a house to live in. And so it really, really starts with building this community of self, your environment, what you surround yourself with, how you're living your day to day. I do believe that discipline equals freedom. Everything in the Bible talks about being disciplined, being in service, but it's the right things, not the wrong things. Discipline is a good thing. It's, you know, for the women, it's the masculine container. It's the bumpers for the men. It's the way that we measure our worth and our doingness. And so We resist that routine. We resist the ritual because we realize we're not afraid of failure because we're already doing it. We're afraid of success because who would I have to be to follow this consistently? Who would I have to be to execute this consistently? So when I say community, I mean like, is your environment designed for you to be the best in your community of one? And then the second part is cutting out all the weeds and all the noise, because before you plant new plants, if you don't and you plant those seeds, the weeds are going to choke them and they're not going to grow because it's competing noise. And then the third is, oh, now who do I get to pour into? Because community is a byproduct of who you're choosing to pour into, not who's pouring into you. In personal development, we say, give away what you want to get. I posted this the other day and I said, if serving is beneath you, then leading is above you. And communities are a collaborative effort. And so I think all too often, and I'll call it out, we fall into the trap of like, oh, I'm empty on the inside. I'm lacking this. Who can I go mooch off of? Who can go give me this hit? Who can go do X, Y, and Z? And like, you can come borrow stuff, but ultimately the number one community is you. And it's leveraging who's already around you, because we also know that there's people in our lives, myself included, where I realize I haven't talked to them for 3 months. And I have an honest conversation with myself. I'm like, yep, that's because I know the moment I do, they're going to hold a mirror up to me. And it's going to help me see who I am and where I'm out of integrity, or I'm out of alignment, or where I haven't been showing up as my authentic self. And so I think most of us know the answer to that. We know the communities that we're in that allow hiding places. And we also know the communities that we have access to that bring out the best of us. But they should be a little stretchy. They should be a little pushy. They should be this place of like, God, every time I do that, I sweat. Like, I'm drenched in sweat right now doing this podcast. Like, it happens every single time. And of course, I'd say this too. Just reach out to people you know. DM Stacy. DM me. I don't need to tell you my website. You can go to my website. It's pink. It's Mind of George. You're welcome. You'll see events. You'll see an alliance. You can DM me though. Get a cup of coffee with me on Zoom. Connect. Like, as who you are. I don't care about your business. I don't care about your goals. Not yet. I care about you. Because that's what informs every single thing that follows. And the results that we create in our business, the inconsistencies that we have, the fears that we have, they're just a projection of an inner reality. And really, it's all because we're compensating, to your earlier point. Trying to be a version we're not. Trying to do it somebody else's way. Trying to prove somebody wrong that's not even alive anymore. We're upset at a 3rd grade teacher because they gave us an F, and now we're like sacrificing our life to build a business, right? Like, whoever it is, it's yours. They're your blueprints. They're your DNA. It's your light. And nobody can shine it but you. So the only thing I want to do is like reach through, grab the volume knob and turn it all the way the hell up. And like, as cheesy as it sounds, like, if it's shining in somebody's eyes, tell them to put sunglasses on or look in the other direction.
This is what your community does.
And they do it to me too. Like, that's what I love. Like, what I love about our community, whether it's the Alliance or our events, it's not my community, it's our community. And it also holds me accountable at a deep level. There's nowhere to hide. And I love that, because that means none of us have anywhere to hide. And we just get to love each other in whatever season we're in, whatever process we're in. And even with my private clients, I love that, like, I fly to Croatia for their weddings, or we have standing calls, and we 2 weeks in a row, we're like, we didn't talk about business. Like, no, we talked about everything that mattered. I'm like, oh, amazing. And some of them are even them pouring into me. And I'm like, wait, no, they're like, no, I needed this today. I have to go have the same conversation with my team. It was just on my heart. I'm like, amazing. Like, community. And it has the ability to breathe life into so many things and so many people, but it also creates collaboration over competition. Like, I want you to shine. Like, I will erase myself from the planet for you to be brighter. I'm okay with that. And I think, like, that's the easiest barometer for everybody else to know when you're in your community. Like, is your community, is the places that you're consuming, the people that you're in relationship with, does everything feel like a competition, or does everything feel like a collaboration for both of you to win? And the best ones are collaboration.
There's enough room in the universe for your brightness and my brightness.
Yeah, 1,000%. And there's enough people for everybody to win.
Yes.
And there's enough to go around. And like, this is why everyone's like, hey, so-and-so stole your model. I'm like, I don't care. Go. Have fun. Teach it. Like, all good, girl. Like, go. Like, it's really just a testament of like how we choose to show up. And it's like amazing. Like, thank you for flattering me. I'm glad it landed. Like, go.
I wasn't going to do this, but I just feel led to do this. So if anyone has listened all the way to up until this point and would like to have more information about George's upcoming retreat, or George and I are planning to do a retreat together.
We are. It's happening now.
It's officially happening now.
Yeah.
So until we have our dates, I am going to set up stacygray.com/retreat, and I will point at George's retreat so you can get access there. And then in the future, depending on when people are listening to this, stacygray.com/retreat is going to have our retreat that we're going to do, because we want to help create community with people who are wanting a permission slip to turn their volume up, to be their brightest and best self, to tap into their calling, and then build and co-create from there. So you can wake up in your dream life and it actually feel like you thought it would, because you are creating from a place of clear identity and you're being supported in a community that also has clear identity.
Yep. And I want to make one note on this, because I can hear the person like, oh, this is so woo-woo. And this is the playbooks, the strategies, the tactics, the things that Stacey and I do well together, her in operations and efficiency and team, and me in marketing and customer journey and mindset. All that stuff still exists. But in order for a playbook to be executed correctly, the player has to have the capacity to do so.
Yes.
And it's the part that's ignored the most. And that's what leaves you feeling out of alignment and trapped sometimes, or in a prison, is because you executed the playbook, but out executed the player because you never take a look under the hood. And I saw an interview with Mike Tyson and Sadhguru about this, and he explained it so eloquently. And he's like, the challenge is that we get this human body, but we never take the time to open the owner's manual. And we wonder why it doesn't function right. And so we'll go on the racetrack, we'll follow the path, we'll follow the plan, but we never actually examine the vehicle that we're driving in. And that's the foundation of all of it. That's what allows everything to feel fulfilled and feel in alignment and have the confidence to make a left turn or a right turn or a detour. It's not because there's a playbook that said turn now, or turn in 2 miles, or turn in 6 miles, because it ultimately has to be yours. And so all of it matters. But it's the combination of you as the player and the playbook that you're executing that makes you successful, not just becoming everybody else's version, tactic, or strategy and running in the playbook and losing yourself in the process.
I want to double tap on this, because you can literally go to ChatGPT right now and say, build me a business like Stacey Gray. Build me a marketing plan like George Bryant, and it will literally give you the playbook.
Yep.
Anybody could do this. The whole world could do this.
Yep.
You could go get the exact playbooks. I literally give people my business blueprints, my playbooks, my standard operating procedures, my checklist, and they don't execute. And it's not because the playbook doesn't work. The playbook has worked. Your playbooks have worked. It's because of the player. And there's nothing wrong with how you're playing right now. When you and I were the previous versions of ourselves, there was nothing wrong with how we were playing. We didn't feel peace.
Yep.
And so we decided, I want to run these plays, but I also want to have peace.
Yep.
And because I want both, I'm going to build differently.
Yep.
And that's what community does. It gives you the space and grace to embrace the brutal facts, hold it, see what you're avoiding, what you're offended by, hold it with grace, alchemize it, reintegrate, realign, and start scaling again from a place of alignment. That's what community does. That's what George's retreat does. That's what our retreat is going to do. And has nothing to do with just the playbooks, because the playbooks aren't going to get you there by yourself. It's them together.
Yes. I would say listen to that again. And for both of us who have coached very, very large companies, I'll tell you right now, entrepreneurs get stuck at the same level. They hit their first 6 figures, they can't make it to 7. They hit their 7, they can't make it to 5. They hit 5 million, they can't make it to 10. And it's always the same, because what got us there, what got us here won't get us there. But in actuality, a lot of the times it's eliminating all the noise and going back to the basics with a new view and a new perspective to allow us to execute them again. And the easiest way to remember this is same reps, different depth.
Yes.
And that's what you're doing, which is why I love the Rooted Founder, because at every level of scale, it's not that the tree is growing taller, it's that your roots are getting deeper.
Yes.
And that's where scale comes from. And the deepening of the roots is in your identity. It's in your belief system. It's in the way that you see situations. And even tangibly for everybody, the difference between somebody who runs a $100 million company and somebody who runs a $500,000 company is if I talk to a $500,000 entrepreneur right now and I'm like, tell me about the business, they're going to tell me, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And you bring in the $500 million guy and he'll be like, oh, yep, opportunity, 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 opportunity. It's not that we have different skill sets. It's that the perspective is different because of that sense of identity and confidence that comes from being in alignment to then know how to operate. Because as you scale, the noise doesn't get less, it gets more. The pressure gets more. The challenges get more. The mistakes don't come with $1,000. They come with $100,000 or $1 million or even more, 10, 20, 30. And it's your ability to know who you are in that, not that anybody can tell you, but can give you community to explore it and find it on your own, to be able to adjust to that and make the decision that feels the best to you. And that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Please join us in person, because we would love to give you a hug and talk business with you and all the things. So stacygray.com/retreat. I want to leave one thing or two things. So I'm going to put 2 on the table, and I'm sure you'll have something to say. But you and I are very much into self-reflection. And the line, we can't organize and scale our businesses unless we organize and scale ourselves. So when you were talking about the first community being ourselves, I want to put on the table that if you're going to work on that community first before you go choose into a community, a question to answer is, what am I avoiding? Answering that is going to show you a lot of the distractions and a lot of the things that are in hiding. Mm-hmm. And the other one is escaping me right now. There was another one that came to mind. Oh, this is it, because you recommended the book to me.
Yep.
The Bait of Satan.
Yep.
What am I offended by?
Yes.
That is going to tell you a lot of where some of the cobwebs in your heart is. Mm-hmm. And when you find these things, what am I avoiding? And what is offending me? You can message me, or you can message George and tell us what's offending you or what you're avoiding. And I promise you, there's nothing that you could possibly say that he or I would shame you for. Nothing. You can unmask, you can say it, and we'll hold it in grace and confidence. And if you're not comfortable with the DM, write it down and share it with at least one person. Mm-hmm. Being seen is the starting point of being able to scale your company again.
Yep. And I love those. And I'm going to give everybody 2 supplementary questions if you struggle with those, because those 2 questions are really, really good. What am I avoiding? And what am I offended by? And for the people like me that are listening, like, nothing. 2 more questions. What am I pretending not to know? And what am I pretending not to see? And I promise you that if you give yourself space and the date and the grace, that you'll have instant clarity and answers to those questions. Because this is really you examining your garden. And if you want it to bear fruit, if you want to eat, if you want to be able to give it away, you have to tend to it. And I'm not going to say and pretend that this is easy. It's simple, but it becomes easy when you realize the benefit on the other side. And this is what we were so naturally good at as kids that the world taught us to forget. And now we just get to fall back in love with doing it for the right reasons for that growth. Those are such good questions.
So good. I could talk to you forever.
Me too.
We could keep recording. But
we should land the plane for everybody else listening, because they're like, this dude is crazy. And I would say, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, welcome to the party. Where have you been? Join the crazy. Thank you. Thank you
girl.
for seeing me. Thank you for going into the depths of your heart. Thank you for scaling businesses. Thank you for falling flat on your face and getting up again and doing it differently. I think that's where all your wisdom has come from.
Truthfully, my front 8 teeth are fake because the amount of times I've fallen on my face. They've been knocked out with me falling on my face. So like physically and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just love you. I love you so much. And everyone listening, go follow George. We'll have his links in the show notes. mindofgeorge.com, his podcast, Mind of George. You are going to learn something from him. You are going to feel seen. You're going to get a permission slip to shine your light as bright as you can so you can step into your calling, get out of your cage, and be on a crusade to build community and joy and laughter around your dinner table again. So thank you for listening, and we will see you at a retreat soon.
We will.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.